Sarah Martinez had always been different from the other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates spent their weekends at the mall or gossiping about boys, she found herself drawn to the shooting range her grandfather had built behind his old farmhouse. The weathered wooden structure sat at the edge of 20 acres of rolling hills, where the sound of gunfire echoed across empty fields without disturbing anyone. Her grandfather, Robert Bobby Martinez, was a Vietnam veteran who had served 3 tours before returning home with stories he rarely shared and skills he was eager to pass on. He had taught Sarah to shoot when she was 12 years old, starting with a small .22 rifle that felt enormous in her tiny hands. Those early lessons had been about more than marksmanship. They were about discipline, respect, and understanding the weight of responsibility that came with holding a weapon. Now, at 21, Sarah stood 5 feet 4 inches tall with a slender frame that made people underestimate her strength. Her dark hair was usually pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her brown eyes held a quiet intensity that most people missed. She had graduated from college with a degree in mechanical engineering, but the job market was tough, and she found herself working at a local auto repair shop while trying to figure out her next move. The decision to join the military came during one of her regular visits to see her grandfather. Bobby had been diagnosed with lung cancer 6 months earlier, and the treatments were taking their toll. As they sat on his back porch, watching the sun set over the hills where she had learned to shoot, he shared something he had never told her before. "I was a sniper in Vietnam," he said quietly, his weathered hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. "Not something I ever talked about, but I was good at it. Real good. Saved a lot of lives by taking others." He paused, looking at his granddaughter with eyes that held decades of memories. "You've got the same gift, Sarah. The steady hands, the patience, the ability to see what others miss. But more than that, you've got the heart for it." Sarah had always known her grandfather had seen combat, but this revelation added new weight to all those hours they had spent together at the range. Every lesson about breathing control, every drill on quick target acquisition, every discussion about wind speed and bullet drop, it had all been preparation for something bigger than weekend target practice. "I've been thinking about the Army," she admitted, surprising herself with the words. She had been considering it for weeks, but had never said it out loud. "There's a recruiter coming to town next month." Bobby nodded slowly. "The military will give you structure, purpose. But it won't be easy, especially for someone like you. There are still a lot of people who don't think women belong in combat roles. You'll have to prove yourself every single day." The recruiting office was located in a strip mall between a nail salon and a pizza place, hardly the imposing military facility Sarah had imagined. Staff Sergeant David Thompson was a stocky man in his 30s with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who had answered the same questions thousands of times. He listened as Sarah explained her background and her interest in a combat role. "With your engineering background and shooting experience, you might be interested in our sniper program," Thompson said, pulling out a thick folder of information. "It's extremely competitive, and I'll be honest, in my 8 years of recruiting, I've only seen 3 women even attempt the qualification course. None of them made it through." Sarah felt a familiar fire kindle in her chest. It was the same feeling she got whenever someone suggested she couldn't do something because of her size or gender. "What would I need to do to qualify?" Thompson outlined the process: basic training, advanced individual training, and then, if she excelled, the opportunity to try out for sniper school. The standards were the same for everyone, regardless of gender. The physical demands were brutal, the mental pressure was intense, and the washout rate was over 70%. "I'm not trying to discourage you," Thompson added, noting the determined look in her eyes. "I'm just making sure you understand what you're signing up for. This isn't a decision to make lightly." Sarah left the recruiting office with a stack of paperwork and a head full of questions. That evening, she drove out to her grandfather's place and found him in his workshop, cleaning one of his old rifles with the methodical precision of someone who had performed the task thousands of times. "I talked to the recruiter today," she said, settling onto a worn wooden stool beside his workbench. "And he told me about sniper school. Said most women don't make it through." Bobby looked up from his work, studying her face in the dim light of the workshop. "Most men don't make it through either. The question isn't whether you're a woman. The question is whether you're willing to push yourself harder than you've ever pushed before." Over the next few weeks, Sarah threw herself into preparation. She increased her running distance, added weight training to her routine, and spent hours at the range working on precision shooting under various conditions. Bobby became her unofficial coach, sharing techniques and mental exercises he had learned decades earlier in a very different war. Shooting is only part of it, he told her during one of their training sessions. A sniper has to be invisible, patient, and willing to lie motionless for hours waiting for the right moment. You have to be able to calculate distance, wind speed, and humidity in your head while someone is shooting back at you. Most importantly, you have to be able to live with the weight of your decisions. The day she signed her enlistment papers, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and terror. She was committing to 4 years of her life, with the possibility of deployment to combat zones around the world. Her parents were supportive but worried, especially her mother, who had hoped Sarah would use her engineering degree to find a safe office job. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," her mother said during their last dinner together before Sarah left for basic training. "I'm not doing this to prove anything," Sarah replied. "I'm doing it because it's what I'm supposed to do." Basic training at Fort Moore, Georgia, was everything the recruiters had warned her about and more. The physical demands were brutal, the drill sergeants were relentless, and the mental pressure was constant. Sarah found herself in a company of 60 recruits, only 8 of whom were women. From the first day, it was clear that she would have to work twice as hard to earn the same respect as her male counterparts. The other recruits came from all walks of life. There was Marcus, a former college football player from Detroit who could do push-ups all day but struggled with the academic portions of training. Jenny was a marathon runner from Oregon who excelled at distance running but had never held a gun before enlisting. Carlos had grown up hunting in rural New Mexico and was a natural marksman but struggled with the discipline and structure of military life. Sarah quickly established herself as one of the top performers in her company. Her engineering background helped her excel in the technical aspects of training, while her years of shooting with Bobby gave her a significant advantage on the rifle range. But it was her quiet determination and refusal to quit that really set her apart. The first real test came during week 3 of basic training, when the company faced the dreaded Forge, a grueling 72-hour field exercise designed to push recruits to their physical and mental limits. Sleep deprivation, limited food, and constant physical challenges were designed to weed out those who didn't have the mental toughness to succeed in combat. Sarah found herself partnered with Marcus for most of the exercise. Despite their different backgrounds, they worked well together, with Sarah's strategic thinking complementing Marcus's physical strength. When Marcus twisted his ankle during a night navigation exercise, Sarah helped him complete the course, earning the respect of both the drill sergeants and her fellow recruits. The rifle marksmanship portion of basic training was where Sarah truly shone. The standard Army rifle qualification required hitting targets at distances from 50 to 300 meters in various positions and time limits. Sarah not only qualified expert, the highest possible score, but did so with a perfect score, hitting every target in the center ring. Drill Sergeant Williams, a tough veteran who had served multiple combat tours, pulled Sarah aside after the qualification. "Martinez, I've been training recruits for 12 years, and I've seen maybe 5 perfect scores in that time. You've got natural ability, but more than that, you've got the discipline to make the most of it. Have you given any thought to advanced training?" "I'm interested in sniper school, Drill Sergeant," Sarah replied. Williams nodded thoughtfully. "It's not easy. The training is brutal, and not everyone is cut out for it. But if you're serious, I can put in a recommendation. The rest is up to you." The final week of basic training included a comprehensive evaluation where each recruit was assessed for their potential military occupational specialty. Sarah's scores in marksmanship, physical fitness, and technical aptitude put her in the top 5% of her class. More importantly, her psychological evaluation indicated the mental toughness and emotional stability required for specialized roles. When graduation day arrived, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything she had experienced before. She had not only survived the 10 weeks of basic training but had excelled in ways that surprised even her. Her parents and grandfather were there to watch her receive her diploma and see her officially become a soldier. Bobby would be proud, her grandfather said, using the nickname only family was allowed to use. His health had declined significantly over the past few months, but he had insisted on making the trip to see her graduate. That evening, as they sat in a hotel restaurant celebrating, Sarah's company commander, Captain Rodriguez, approached their table. "Private Martinez, congratulations on your graduation. I wanted to personally inform you that you've been accepted for advanced individual training in the infantry, with the possibility of further specialization. Your drill sergeants speak very highly of your potential." After the captain left, Sarah's grandfather reached across the table and took her hand. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. "The real challenges are still ahead. But remember what I taught you. Stay calm, trust your training, and never let anyone make you believe you don't belong where you've earned the right to be." As Sarah prepared for the next phase of her military journey, she carried with her the lessons learned during those long afternoons at her grandfather's range, the confidence earned through 10 grueling weeks of basic training, and the quiet determination that had driven her to pursue a path that few women had traveled before. She knew that sniper school would test every aspect of her physical and mental capabilities, but she also knew that she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The foundation had been laid, the initial tests had been passed, and now the real work was about to begin. Advanced individual training at Fort Benning, Georgia, was a different world from basic training. Where basic had been about breaking down civilians and building soldiers, AIT was about creating specialists. Sarah found herself among 200 infantry trainees, but only 12 had been selected for potential sniper training evaluation. Of those 12, she was the only woman. The barracks at Fort Benning were older than those at Fort Moore, with worn linoleum floors and windows that rattled when the Georgia wind picked up. Sarah's bunk was in a bay with 30 other soldiers, and she quickly learned that privacy was a luxury that didn't exist in this environment. The other soldiers ranged from fresh-faced 18-year-olds to older recruits like Tommy Berkshire, a former police officer from Chicago who had enlisted after his department was downsized. Sergeant First Class Michael "Iron Mike" Patterson was the lead instructor for the Sniper Candidate Evaluation course. Patterson was a legend at Fort Benning, a former Delta Force operator who had completed multiple deployments and held the post record for confirmed kills. He stood just under 6 feet tall, but his presence seemed to fill any room he entered. His steel gray eyes missed nothing, and his reputation for being brutally honest preceded him. "Ladies and gentlemen," Patterson addressed the 12 candidates on their first day. "You are here because someone believes you might have what it takes to become a sniper. I'm here to prove them wrong. Statistically, 10 of you will wash out before the end of this evaluation period. Of the 2 who might advance, maybe one will actually complete sniper school. Maybe." The evaluation period lasted 6 weeks and covered everything from advanced marksmanship to camouflage and concealment, from navigation and survival skills to the psychological aspects of precision shooting. Each day brought new challenges designed to test not just skill, but mental fortitude and the ability to perform under extreme pressure. The first week focused on advanced marksmanship with the M24 sniper weapon system. The rifle was heavier and more precise than anything Sarah had used before, and the standards were unforgiving. Candidates were required to consistently hit targets at distances up to 800 meters, accounting for wind, temperature, humidity, and elevation changes. A miss by more than 2 inches at any distance was considered a failure. Sarah struggled initially with the new weapon system. The M24's weight and balance were different from her grandfather's rifles, and the military ammunition behaved differently than the custom loads she was used to. For the first 3 days, her groups were acceptable, but not exceptional. She watched as 2 candidates were eliminated for failing to meet the marksmanship standards. Martinez, Patterson called after a particularly frustrating session where her groups had scattered more than usual. "Walk with me." They moved away from the firing line, walking along a path that led through the pine trees surrounding the range. Patterson was quiet for several minutes, his boots crunching on the fallen pine needles. "You're fighting the rifle," he finally said. "I've watched your technique, and you know what you're doing. But you're trying to force it to behave like something you're familiar with instead of learning what this specific weapon wants to do." Sarah nodded, understanding the feedback. It was similar to advice her grandfather had given her years earlier about adapting to new equipment rather than forcing old habits. Every rifle has its own personality, Patterson continued. The M24 is a precision instrument, but it's also a military weapon designed to function reliably under combat conditions. It doesn't want to be babied. It wants to be used confidently and consistently. That evening, Sarah spent extra time in the armory, studying the M24's specifications and cleaning the weapon with meticulous care. She adjusted her shooting position slightly, modifying her grip and breathing technique to better match the rifle's characteristics. The next morning, her first group measured less than an inch at 300 meters. The second week introduced stalking and concealment training, skills that many of the candidates found more challenging than marksmanship. The ability to move undetected across varied terrain while carrying full equipment was an art form that required patience, planning, and an almost supernatural awareness of one's surroundings. The training area was a 1,000-acre section of Georgia forest and open fields, dotted with observation posts manned by instructors equipped with high-powered optics. Candidates were given a target location and told to approach within 200 meters without being detected. They had 6 hours to complete the stalk, set up a concealed firing position, and take a simulated shot at a designated target. Sarah found this aspect of training came naturally to her. Years of hunting with her grandfather had taught her to read terrain and understand how light and shadow could be used for concealment. Her smaller frame was actually an advantage, allowing her to use cover that larger candidates couldn't exploit effectively. The course's most challenging element was the unknown distance shooting, where candidates were given targets at ranges they had to estimate themselves before engaging. This required not just marksmanship skills, but also the ability to quickly and accurately judge distance using visual cues and environmental factors. Sarah excelled at this phase, her engineering background helping her calculate range using mathematical principles, while her shooting experience provided the instinctive feel for how bullets behaved at different distances. She consistently estimated ranges within 5% accuracy and placed shots within the required tolerance. By the end of the third week, only 7 candidates remained. 3 had been eliminated for marksmanship deficiencies, and 2 had dropped out due to injuries sustained during the physical training portions of the course. The remaining group had begun to function as a tight unit, with each member's strengths complementing the other's weaknesses. Jake Morrison was a former college baseball player from Montana whose natural hand-eye coordination made him exceptionally accurate with quick shots. David Chun had grown up in San Francisco but spent summers with relatives in rural China, where he had learned tracking and fieldcraft skills that served him well in the stalking exercises. Tommy Berkshire's police background gave him advantages in observation and target identification. The fourth week introduced night operations and the use of night vision equipment. Working in darkness added an entirely new dimension to the challenges, requiring candidates to navigate, communicate, and engage targets using unfamiliar technology while maintaining the noise discipline and concealment techniques they had learned in daylight conditions. Sarah struggled more with this phase than she had expected. The night vision goggles distorted depth perception and required a different approach to shooting than she was accustomed to. The infrared lasers used for target designation behaved differently than traditional optics, and the weight of the additional equipment affected her ability to maintain stable shooting positions for extended periods. Patterson noticed her difficulties during a night shooting exercise where her normally precise shooting became erratic and inconsistent. After the exercise, he approached her with advice that would prove crucial to her success. Night shooting isn't about seeing better, he explained as they stood in the darkness outside the barracks. It's about accepting that you're going to see differently and adapting your technique accordingly. Your muscle memory is based on visual cues that don't exist in this environment. You need to rely more on feel and less on sight. The advice resonated with Sarah, reminding her of lessons her grandfather had taught about shooting in low-light conditions during their early morning hunting trips. She began to focus more on the fundamentals of shooting position, breathing control, and trigger technique, using the night vision equipment as a tool rather than a crutch. Her improvement was dramatic and immediate. Within 2 days, her night shooting scores had improved to match her daylight performance. She learned to trust the equipment while relying on the basic skills that had made her successful in the first place. The fifth week brought psychological evaluation and stress testing. Candidates were subjected to simulated combat conditions including loud noises, smoke, time pressure, and physical exhaustion while being required to maintain precision shooting standards. Sleep deprivation was used to test decision-making abilities under extreme fatigue. This phase eliminated two more candidates. One suffered what appeared to be a panic attack during a simulated artillery bombardment, losing the ability to function effectively under stress. Another became increasingly erratic and aggressive as the sleep deprivation accumulated, raising concerns about his suitability for the psychological demands of sniper operations. Sarah found the stress testing challenging, but manageable. Her engineering background had taught her to break complex problems into smaller, manageable components, and she applied this approach to the stress scenarios. When overwhelmed by noise and chaos, she focused on one fundamental skill at a time: breathing, sight alignment, trigger control, until the complete sequence became automatic despite the distractions. The final week culminated in a comprehensive practical exercise that combined all the skills learned during the evaluation period. Candidates were given a scenario involving a hostage situation in a mock urban environment. They had to infiltrate the area, locate targets using provided intelligence, establish concealed firing positions, and engage multiple targets in a specific sequence within tight time constraints. The exercise was designed to test not just technical skills, but also judgment, adaptability, and the ability to perform complex tasks under extreme pressure. Each candidate worked alone, but was monitored by multiple instructors who evaluated every aspect of their performance. Sarah's turn came on the final day of the evaluation period. She was given a briefing that identified 3 hostage takers in a mock village constructed for training purposes. The targets were represented by silhouettes placed in windows and doorways, and she had to engage them in a specific order to avoid theoretical harm to hostages. The infiltration phase required her to move 800 meters through mixed terrain, crossing open fields, and navigating through wooded areas while avoiding enemy observers. She took a circuitous route that added distance but provided better concealment, reaching her planned firing position 15 minutes ahead of schedule. From her concealed position in a cluster of pine trees, Sarah could see all 3 targets, but faced a complex shooting problem. The ranges varied from 250 to 450 meters, the targets were partially concealed, and she had to engage them within a 30-second window to prevent theoretical harm to hostages. She spent 10 minutes studying the targets, calculating ranges, and noting environmental conditions. Wind was variable, switching directions every few minutes as thermal currents moved through the valley. Temperature was rising as the morning sun gained strength, which would affect bullet trajectory. Most challenging, one target was positioned behind a window that created optical distortion. When the signal came to begin the engagement sequence, Sarah's mind became completely focused. Her breathing settled into the controlled rhythm she had practiced thousands of times. Her first shot, at the closest target, was centered perfectly. The second shot, compensating for wind and the increased range, hit exactly where intended. The third shot, the most difficult due to the window distortion and maximum range, took an extra second to aim, but resulted in another perfect hit. Total elapsed time for all 3 shots, 18 seconds. Patterson's voice came through her radio earpiece. Targets down. Time noted. Exercise complete. As Sarah made her way back to the debriefing area, she felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. 6 weeks of evaluation had tested every aspect of her capabilities, and she had survived when 10 others had not. But she also knew this was just the beginning. If selected for sniper school, she would face months of even more intensive training. The final briefing took place in a classroom where the 5 remaining candidates sat facing Patterson and 2 other senior instructors. The atmosphere was formal and serious as Patterson reviewed each candidate's performance throughout the evaluation period. "Gentlemen and lady," Patterson began, "you have completed one of the most demanding evaluation processes in the United States Army. Each of you has demonstrated the basic capabilities required for sniper training. However, sniper school has limited slots, and We can only recommend 3 candidates from this evaluation cycle. He called the names of Jake Morrison and David Chen first, both of whom had consistently performed well throughout the evaluation period. Sarah waited, her heart pounding, as Patterson paused before announcing the final selection. The third candidate recommended for sniper school is Private Martinez. Relief flooded through Sarah, followed immediately by the realization that the real challenges still lay ahead. Sniper school would be longer, more demanding, and more competitive than anything she had experienced so far. After the briefing, as the other candidates congratulated each other and said their goodbyes, Patterson approached Sarah privately. Martinez, you've earned this opportunity through consistent performance and steady improvement throughout the evaluation. But I want to be clear about what you're facing. Sniper school will test you in ways this evaluation couldn't even approach. You'll be competing with candidates from multiple branches of service, including special operations units. The standards are absolute, and there are no participation awards. Sarah met his gaze steadily. I understand, Sergeant. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Patterson nodded approvingly. I believe you are. But being ready and staying ready through 4 months of the most demanding training the military offers are 2 different things. Don't let success here make you overconfident. That evening, Sarah called her grandfather to share the news. Bobby's health had continued to decline, but his voice was strong when he heard about her selection. I knew you'd make it through, he said. But remember what I told you before, this is just the beginning. The real test is still coming. As Sarah prepared to leave Fort Benning for the brief break before sniper school began, she reflected on how much she had learned and changed during the evaluation period. She had proven to herself and others that she belonged among the military's elite marksmen, but she also understood that respect had to be earned again and again, one challenge at a time. The next phase would bring new instructors, new standards, and competition from the best marksmen the military had to offer. But Sarah felt ready. The foundation had been tested and proven solid. Now it was time to build something extraordinary on top of it. The United States Army Sniper School at Fort Moore represented the pinnacle of military marksmanship training. Only the most elite candidates from across all branches of service were selected to attend the 16-week course that would transform good marksmen into precision weapons. Sarah arrived at the sprawling Georgia facility with a mixture of excitement and apprehension, knowing that she was about to face the most challenging period of her military career. The class consisted of 24 candidates representing the Army, Marines, Navy SEALs, and Air Force Special Operations. Sarah was not only the sole woman in the class, but also one of the youngest candidates at 22 years old. Many of her classmates were seasoned combat veterans with multiple deployments, special operations backgrounds, and years of advanced training. The competition would be fierce, and the standards were unforgiving. Chief Warrant Officer James Reaper Sullivan was the school's senior instructor, a legend in military sniper circles with over 200 confirmed kills across 4 combat deployments. Sullivan had served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and several classified operations that couldn't be discussed publicly. His reputation for excellence was matched only by his reputation for being absolutely ruthless in eliminating candidates who didn't meet his standards. Welcome to Sniper School, Sullivan addressed the class on their first day, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had proven himself in the most demanding circumstances imaginable. You are here because someone believes you might have the potential to become a military sniper. I am here to determine whether that belief is justified or misguided. The first few days were devoted to administrative tasks, equipment issue, and initial assessments. Each candidate was issued precision rifles, specialized optics, range-finding equipment, and camouflage gear worth tens of thousands of dollars. More importantly, they were introduced to the standards that would govern their training. The marksmanship requirements were far more demanding than anything Sarah had encountered during her evaluation at Fort Benning. Candidates were required to achieve first-round hits on man-sized targets at distances up to 1,000 meters under various environmental conditions. Miss rates above 2% resulted in immediate dismissal from the program, with no opportunity for remedial training or second chances. Physical fitness standards were equally demanding. Candidates had to complete a 12-mile forced march with full equipment in under 3 hours, maintain specific times on obstacle courses, and demonstrate the ability to remain motionless in uncomfortable positions for hours at a time. The psychological demands included stress tests, decision-making scenarios, and evaluations of each candidate's ability to function independently under extreme pressure. Sarah's first real test came during the second week, when candidates were introduced to the M107.50 caliber sniper rifle. The massive weapon weighed over 30 pounds fully loaded and generated recoil that could knock an unprepared shooter off balance. The .50 caliber round was capable of engaging targets at ranges exceeding 1,500 meters and could penetrate light armor and building materials. The M107 was unlike anything Sarah had ever fired. The rifle's size and weight required modifications to her shooting technique, and the tremendous recoil demanded absolute attention to body position and follow-through. Her first few shots scattered widely as she struggled to adapt to the weapon's characteristics. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, one of Sullivan's assistant instructors, noticed Sarah's difficulties and approached her during a break in training. Rodriguez was a former Marine Scout sniper who had earned respect through performance rather than intimidation. "The 50 is a different animal," Rodriguez explained as they stood beside the massive rifle. "It's not about strength. I've seen guys who can bench press 300 pounds get knocked around by this thing. It's about understanding the physics and working with the weapon instead of fighting it." Rodriguez spent an extra hour with Sarah after the official training day ended, helping her adjust her technique for the larger rifle. The key was accepting that the M107 would move during recoil and learning to control that movement rather than trying to prevent it entirely. The improvement was gradual but steady. Within a week, Sarah was achieving acceptable accuracy with the .50 caliber rifle, and by the end of the third week, her groups were among the best in the class. The extra training time had cost her sleep and personal time, but the investment proved worthwhile when she consistently achieved first-round hits during evaluation exercises. The fourth and fifth weeks focused on advanced ballistics and environmental considerations. Candidates learned to calculate complex firing solutions accounting for factors like air density, temperature gradients, wind speed, and direction at multiple points along the bullet's trajectory, and even the Coriolis effect caused by the Earth's rotation. This phase played to Sarah's strengths in mathematics and engineering. While other candidates struggled with the calculations required for long-range precision shooting, Sarah found the mathematical aspects intuitive and engaging. She quickly mastered the use of ballistic computers and learned to verify their calculations using manual methods when electronic equipment was unavailable or unreliable. Her academic success in the classroom translated to improved performance on the range. Understanding the science behind long-range shooting gave Sarah confidence to make precise adjustments for environmental conditions and trust her calculations even when they contradicted her instincts. The middle portion of the course introduced urban sniper operations, a specialized discipline that required different skills and techniques than traditional long-range shooting in open terrain. Urban environments presented unique challenges, including limited fields of fire, complex angles, and the need to engage targets through various materials like glass, wire mesh, and thin building materials. Sarah excelled in urban operations, her smaller size allowing her to utilize firing positions that larger candidates couldn't access effectively. She developed a talent for reading urban terrain and identifying covered routes that provided access to advantageous positions. Her engineering background helped her understand structural elements of buildings and predict how various materials would affect bullet trajectory. One particular exercise required candidates to engage targets in a mock city environment while avoiding detection by enemy observers. Sarah identified a route through storm drains and utility tunnels that allowed her to approach her assigned position without exposure to observation. Her unconventional approach drew attention from the instructors and earned praise for creative thinking under pressure. The seventh and eighth weeks brought the most psychologically demanding phase of training: stress inoculation and decision-making under pressure. Candidates faced scenarios designed to replicate the mental stress of combat operations, including simulated friendly casualties, equipment failures, and complex rules of engagement. The training included sleep deprivation exercises where candidates were required to maintain precision shooting standards after being awake for for 36 consecutive hours. Physical stress was introduced through demanding exercises immediately before shooting evaluations. Mental pressure was applied through rapid-fire decision-making scenarios where candidates had to identify legitimate targets while avoiding harm to civilians or friendly forces. Sarah found this phase more challenging than the purely technical aspects of training. The sleep deprivation affected her concentration and decision-making abilities, while the physical stress made it difficult to maintain the fine motor control required for precision shooting. Several candidates were eliminated during this phase when their performance degraded below acceptable standards. The key to surviving the stress phase was developing robust fundamental techniques that could function even when higher-level cognitive abilities were impaired by fatigue or pressure. Sarah worked to simplify her shooting process, eliminating unnecessary steps, and relying on muscle memory developed through thousands of repetitions. Her breakthrough came during a particularly demanding exercise where candidates had to engage multiple targets after completing an exhausting obstacle course. While other students struggled with complex calculations and equipment adjustments, Sarah relied on simplified techniques that proved more reliable under stress. Her performance during this exercise earned recognition as one of the best in class history. The 9th week introduced advanced camouflage and concealment techniques that went far beyond the basic fieldcraft taught during initial evaluation. Candidates learned to construct elaborate hides that could remain undetected for days, to move across open terrain without being observed, and to establish firing positions that were virtually invisible even to trained observers using advanced optics. This training took place in varied environments including forests, desert terrain, and urban areas. Each environment required different camouflage techniques and materials. Sarah learned to use natural vegetation, artificial materials, and even discarded urban debris to create effective concealment. Her attention to detail and patience served her well during this phase. While some candidates rushed through hide construction and movement exercises, Sarah took time to perfect every element of her concealment. Her hides consistently passed detailed inspections by instructors using thermal imaging and high-powered optics. The most demanding test came during a week-long field exercise where candidates had to remain concealed in designated areas while conducting surveillance and engaging targets of opportunity. Students were required to survive on minimal rations, maintain communication schedules, and complete assigned missions without being detected by opposing forces. Sarah's position was in a wooded area overlooking a road junction where she had to monitor traffic and engage specific targets when they appeared. She spent 2 days constructing a hide that blended seamlessly with the natural terrain, complete with multiple escape routes and communication positions. During the 5-day exercise, Sarah successfully engaged 3 assigned targets while remaining completely undetected by opposing forces who conducted intensive searches of her area. Her hide was so well constructed that instructors had difficulty locating it even after she revealed her position at the exercise's conclusion. The final month of training focused on mission planning, intelligence analysis, and the integration of sniper operations with larger military units. Candidates learned to develop target folders, analyze enemy patterns, and coordinate their operations with infantry, artillery, and air support elements. This phase required skills beyond marksmanship and fieldcraft. Effective snipers had to understand tactical situations, communicate clearly under pressure, and make decisions that could affect entire military operations. The intellectual demands were as challenging as the physical and technical requirements that had dominated earlier phases of training. Sarah's engineering background proved valuable during mission planning exercises. Her systematic approach to problem-solving and ability to analyze complex systems helped her develop comprehensive operational plans that accounted for numerous variables and contingencies. The final examination was a week-long practical exercise that combined all elements of sniper training. Candidates were assigned individual missions that required infiltration, target identification, precision engagement, and exfiltration while operating independently in hostile territory. Sarah's mission required her to infiltrate a 12-square-kilometer area, locate and eliminate a high-value target, and extract to a designated pickup point within 72 hours. The target was represented by a specific silhouette that had to be identified among numerous decoy targets and engaged from a range exceeding 800 meters. The infiltration phase required Sarah to move 8 kilometers through varied terrain while avoiding detection by opposing forces conducting active patrols. She chose a route that avoided obvious avenues of approach, using natural terrain features and careful timing to remain undetected. Once in the target area, Sarah spent 18 hours conducting surveillance to locate the assigned target. Her patience and systematic observation paid off when she identified the target's silhouette in a window of a building that offered only a brief exposure window twice per day. The shot itself was technically demanding, requiring Sarah to engage a partially concealed target at 850 meters while accounting for significant crosswinds and elevation differences. She had one opportunity to engage the target, as the exposure window was only 30 seconds long, and missing would compromise her position. Sarah's shot was perfect, striking the target silhouette precisely in the center mass. Her immediate exfiltration was smooth and professional, reaching the extraction point ahead of schedule despite conducting counter-surveillance measures to ensure she wasn't being followed. The final week included comprehensive evaluations, equipment turn-in, and graduation preparations. Of the 24 candidates who had started the course 16 weeks earlier, only 8 remained. The others had been eliminated for various reasons, including marksmanship deficiencies, fitness failures, psychological unsuitability, and inability to adapt to the mental demands of sniper operations. Sarah had not only survived the course, but had excelled in ways that impressed even the veteran instructors. Her overall scores ranked 3rd in the class, behind 2 special operations veterans with extensive combat experience. More importantly, she had demonstrated the consistency and reliability that distinguished truly elite marksmen from those who were merely technically proficient. Chief Warrant Officer Sullivan addressed the graduating class with words that carried special meaning for Sarah. "You 8 individuals represent less than 1% of the military marksmen I have evaluated during my career. You have proven that you possess not only the technical skills required for precision shooting, but also the mental toughness and professional judgment necessary for sniper operations." Sullivan paused, looking directly at Sarah. "Some of you have overcome additional challenges to earn your place here. Your success serves as proof that excellence recognizes no boundaries other than individual determination and professional competence." The graduation ceremony was attended by Sarah's family, including her grandfather, who had insisted on making the trip despite his declining health. Bobby's pride was evident as he watched his granddaughter receive her sniper qualification and the distinctive badge that marked her as one of the military's most elite marksmen. "You've done something special here," Bobby told Sarah after the ceremony. "But remember that this is really just the beginning. Everything you've learned here is preparation for the real challenges you'll face when you deploy. The training has given you the tools. Now you have to prove you can use them when lives are on the line." As Sarah prepared for her first assignment as a qualified military sniper, she carried with her not just the technical skills and knowledge gained during 16 weeks of intensive training, but also the confidence that came from proving herself against the highest standards the military could establish. She had overcome the doubts of those who questioned whether a woman could succeed in this demanding role, but more importantly, she had proven to herself that she belonged among the military's most elite warriors. The next phase would bring deployment to combat zones where her skills would be tested under the ultimate pressure of actual warfare. But Sarah felt ready. She had been forged in the crucible of sniper school and emerged as a precision instrument capable of performing when everything depended on a single shot. The transport helicopter descended through the dusty Afghan air toward Forward Operating Base Chapman, a remote outpost nestled in the mountains near the Pakistani border. Sarah pressed her face to the small window, watching the rugged landscape unfold below. After months of training and preparation, she was finally approaching her first combat deployment as a qualified military sniper. Chapman was a stark collection of concrete barriers, prefabricated buildings, and defensive positions carved into the mountainous terrain. The base housed approximately 400 soldiers from various units, all focused on disrupting insurgent activities in one of Afghanistan's most dangerous regions. The elevation exceeded 8,000 feet, creating thin air that would affect both human performance and ballistic calculations. Sarah was assigned to Bravo Company, 2nd Battalion, 87th Infantry Regiment, a unit that specialized in long-range reconnaissance and surveillance operations in the challenging mountain environment. The company had been deployed for 6 months and had developed a reputation for professionalism and effectiveness in the complex terrain that characterized their area of operations. Captain Michael Torres, Bravo Company's commanding officer, was a West Point graduate with 2 previous combat deployments. Torres had specifically requested a qualified sniper for his unit after losing his previous designated marksman to an improvised explosive device 3 months earlier. He understood the tactical advantages that precision shooting capability provided in mountainous terrain where engagements routinely occurred at ranges exceeding 600 meters. Sergeant Martinez, Torres said during Sarah's initial briefing, using her recently promoted rank, "Welcome to the mountains. Your reputation from sniper school preceded you, and, frankly, we need your capabilities. The enemy in this area is experienced, well-equipped, and familiar with terrain that gives them significant advantages over conventional infantry tactics." Sarah had been promoted to sergeant upon graduation from sniper school, a recognition of both her technical qualifications and leadership potential. The promotion carried additional responsibilities, including training other soldiers in advanced marksmanship and serving as the company's senior precision shooting advisor. Her first weeks at Chapman were devoted to acclimatization and integration with her new unit. The high altitude required physiological adaptation that affected both physical performance and mental acuity. The thin air also changed ballistic calculations, requiring Sarah to recalibrate her equipment and modify her shooting techniques for the new environment. The soldiers of Bravo Company initially approached Sarah with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Most had never served with a female sniper, and some questioned whether she could perform effectively under the physical and mental stresses of combat operations. Their concerns were based less on prejudice than on the practical understanding that their lives might depend on her capabilities. Staff Sergeant David Kim, a squad leader with extensive combat experience, was assigned as Sarah's partner and spotter. Kim had served 3 previous deployments and had worked with snipers before, though never with a woman. His initial assessment was professional, but reserved as he evaluated Sarah's abilities and compatibility with his unit. "I don't care what's between your legs," Kim told Sarah during their first mission planning session. "What I care about is whether you can put rounds where they need to go when my soldiers are counting on covering fire. Everything else is noise." Sarah appreciated Kim's direct approach and professional focus. She understood that respect would have to be earned through performance rather than credentials, regardless of her qualifications or training achievements. The combat environment would provide the ultimate test of her abilities and professional competence. Their first operational mission came during Sarah's 3rd week at Chapman. Intelligence reports indicated that insurgent forces were using a mountain pass approximately 15 kilometers from the base to transport weapons and supplies. Bravo Company was tasked with establishing an observation post to monitor the area and interdict enemy movement when opportunities arose. The mission required a 12-man team to infiltrate the target area, establish concealed positions, and maintain surveillance for up to 5 days. Sarah and Kim formed the designated marksman element, responsible for providing precision fire support and eliminating high-value targets when they appeared. The infiltration took place during a moonless night, with the team moving through treacherous mountain terrain using night vision equipment. The elevation changes were extreme, requiring the soldiers to climb nearly 2,000 feet while carrying full combat loads exceeding 60 pounds per person. The physical demands were brutal, but Sarah had trained extensively for such conditions and kept pace with the team throughout the approach. The observation post was established in a rocky outcropping that provided excellent visibility over the target valley while offering natural concealment and defensive positions. Sarah and Kim established their hide approximately 800 meters from the suspected transit route, positioning themselves to engage targets throughout the valley floor. The first 2 days passed without significant activity. Sarah used the time to study the terrain, calculate range cards for potential target areas, and refine her ballistic data for the specific environmental conditions. The altitude, temperature variations, and unique atmospheric conditions required adjustments to her standard calculations. On the third morning, Kim spotted movement through his high-powered spotting scope. A group of approximately 15 individuals was moving through the valley, carrying what appeared to be weapons and equipment. The group's movement patterns and equipment suggested they were insurgent forces rather than local civilians. "I count 15 military-age males with weapons and heavy packs," Kim whispered into his radio, providing information to the team leader. "They're following the suspected transit route, moving southeast toward the Pakistani border." Captain Torres, monitoring from a position 200 meters away, responded immediately. "Sniper team, you are authorized to engage targets of opportunity. Priority targets are anyone carrying crew-served weapons or communications equipment." Sarah studied the moving group through her rifle scope, identifying potential targets and calculating the complex shot parameters. The range was 750 meters, with a significant elevation difference and variable crosswinds created by the mountain terrain. The targets were moving at a steady walking pace, requiring her to lead her shots appropriately. Kim provided spotting assistance, calling wind conditions, and helping Sarah track the movement of individual targets. The partnership between sniper and spotter was crucial for success in such challenging conditions, requiring seamless communication and absolute trust between the two soldiers. "I have eyes on a target carrying what appears to be a machine gun," Sarah reported quietly. "Range 750, moving left to right. Speed approximately 2 miles per hour." Kim confirmed the target identification and provided additional environmental information. "Wind is variable, primarily left to right at 8 to 12 miles per hour. Temperature has risen 6 degrees since dawn, affecting your ballistic solution." Sarah made the necessary calculations and adjusted her point of aim to compensate for the complex environmental factors. Her first shot would be crucial, as missing would alert the entire group and eliminate the element of surprise that made the engagement possible. The shot required perfect timing, environmental calculation, and technical execution. Sarah controlled her breathing, aligned her sights precisely, and squeezed the trigger with the smooth, consistent pressure that had become automatic through thousands of hours of training. The shot was perfect. The target carrying the machine gun dropped immediately, struck center mass by the precisely aimed round. The other members of the group initially scattered, seeking cover among the rocks and sparse vegetation of the valley floor. "Target down," Kim confirmed through his spotting scope. "Excellent shot. The group is taking cover, but I can still see several targets." Over the next 10 minutes, Sarah engaged 4 additional targets, achieving hits on each shot despite the challenging conditions and the target's attempts to find concealment. Her shooting was methodical and precise, with each engagement carefully planned and executed to maximum effect. The remaining members of the insurgent group eventually withdrew from the area, carrying their wounded and abandoning much of their equipment. Sarah's precision shooting had effectively broken up the transit operation and eliminated a significant threat to coalition forces in the region. "Outstanding shooting, Sergeant Martinez," Captain Torres said when the team returned to base 3 days later. "Your performance under combat conditions was exactly what this unit needed. You've proven that your reputation was well-earned." The successful mission marked a turning point in Sarah's integration with Bravo Company. The soldiers who had initially questioned her capabilities now treated her as a trusted and respected member of the team. Her technical competence had been demonstrated under the ultimate test of combat conditions. Word of Sarah's performance spread throughout the base and eventually reached higher command levels. Within weeks, she was receiving requests to support other units conducting operations in the region. Her combination of technical expertise and proven combat effectiveness made her a valuable asset that commanders sought for their most challenging missions. One particularly demanding mission came 2 months later, when Sarah was attached to a special operations team conducting a high-risk operation against a confirmed terrorist leader. The target was located in a heavily defended compound that required precision elimination to avoid civilian casualties and collateral damage. The operation required Sarah to position herself on a mountainside overlooking the target compound at a range of 1,200 meters, near the maximum effective range of her rifle system. The shot would have to be taken through a small window opening during a brief exposure period, requiring perfect timing and execution. Sarah spent 2 days studying the target area, calculating ballistic solutions for the extreme range, and planning her approach and withdrawal routes. The technical challenges were enormous, but her training and combat experience had prepared her for such demanding scenarios. When the moment came, Sarah's shot was flawless. The target was eliminated with a single round, allowing the assault team to secure the compound without resistance and preventing potential civilian casualties that might have resulted from a direct assault. The mission's success earned Sarah recognition from the highest levels of military command. She was awarded the Bronze Star Medal for her actions and recommended for additional specialized training and assignments. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from her fellow soldiers. Sergeant Kim, her spotter and partner, spoke for the entire company when he addressed Sarah after their final mission together. "When you first arrived, some of us wondered whether a woman could handle this job," Kim said during an informal gathering in the base dining facility. "You didn't just prove us wrong. You proved that excellence has nothing to do with gender and everything to do with skill, dedication, and courage under fire." The comment that had once been whispered mockingly about a woman handling a rifle had been transformed into respectful recognition of exceptional capability. Sarah had not only mastered the technical aspects of precision shooting, but had proven her worth under the ultimate test of combat conditions. As her deployment neared its end, Sarah reflected on how much she had grown during her months in Afghanistan. She had arrived as a highly trained but untested sniper and was returning as a combat-proven professional with a record of achievement that would open doors throughout her military career. The final validation came during her last week at Chapman, when a young soldier approached her during a training session where she was teaching advanced marksmanship techniques to other members of the company. "Sergeant Martinez," the soldier said, "I heard someone saying that a woman couldn't handle a rifle in combat." Then, the commander told them, "Every target down, record time." That shut them up pretty quick. Sarah smiled, remembering the doubts and challenges she had faced throughout her journey from her grandfather's shooting range to the mountains of Afghanistan. The path had been difficult, demanding, and sometimes lonely, but it had led to something extraordinary. She had proven that determination, skill, and character were the only qualifications that mattered for excellence in any field. The mockery had been silenced by performance, the doubts had been answered by results, and the barriers had been broken by someone willing to do whatever it took to succeed. As Sarah prepared to return home, she carried with her not just the satisfaction of missions accomplished and targets eliminated, but the knowledge that she had opened doors for others who would follow. Her success had proven that excellence recognized no boundaries other than individual determination and professional competence. The young woman who had once been mocked for handling a rifle had become a symbol of what was possible when talent met opportunity and determination overcame prejudice. Her story would inspire others to pursue their own paths of excellence, regardless of the obstacles they might face along the way.